It's been 6 months since I swapped out my iPad Pro for this iPad Mini. How have things worked out? Was it a good decision? A good choice to downsize? What could that mean for you? Let's get into it. It's been a while since I last made a video in my really messy office. 6 months ago, I made a series of videos on why this 2017 10.5-inch iPad Pro needed replacing and what I could replace it with, and then reached the decision to get this iPad Mini 7th generation. I've been using the iPad Mini ever since. When I bought it, it was in the winter when I wasn't really expecting to use it much. To remind you, I prefer using my trusty M1 MacBook Air for darn near everything, but I had a few specific use cases for my iPad, for an iPad. First, it was traveling. Lightweight, simple, manage some pictures, keep some documents, that kind of thing. Second was for reading. Download a book or two for my library, unlimited books at my disposal. Third was for the volunteer work I do in the field in the summer. Reference materials, filling in some really simple spreadsheets, looking at maps, but all of it really portable, really low-end productivity work. How did that all work out? Let me just say point blank that the reason I had to retire the Pro was because of no battery life. This Mini, plenty. All day and more, problems solved, but any new iPad would have solved that problem. So how well does the iPad Mini fit my use cases? Well, let's start with reading. I don't read that many books or magazines, but this thing is the perfect reader size to carry with you. But warning, it's not perfect for everything. I use Libby to stay connected with my local library, getting books and magazines. Reading books on the Mini generally rocks. The way Libby works makes it comfy to read in either portrait or landscape. The only issue is often one that has nothing to do with the iPad: page numbers. Often a non-fiction book will reference something on page 71, except that the page numbers in an ebook don't correspond to the page numbers in a paper book, and the reference is useless. Big whoop, not the fault of the Mini. Magazines are a real mixed bag, and this is going to get into a recurring theme: the device's size. Get a small magazine like, say, Reader's Digest, and it's a great experience, and the page numbers work well too. Get a big full-format magazine like, say, Esquire, and the iPad's Mini size is an issue. The text can be too small to read. You spend a lot of time pinching and zooming. Double-page spreads just don't work. And as noted, this isn't Libby's fault or Esquire's fault. It's that the iPad Mini screen is small, period. And depending on what you're reading, that can be an issue. One other nit I have is this whole problem with screen brightness if you're trying to sit outside and read. It only maxes out at 600 nits, and in bright sunshine, that's just barely bright enough. Recurring theme number 2, screen brightness and outdoor use. A fake paper-like screen protector reduces glare and makes using the Mini outside a lot better. But none of this is any different from my old iPad Pro. I could read the books outside, but not all that well. The higher brightness on the latest iPad Pros that I could have bought instead would have had big advantages. But using the Mini as an e-reader is better than using the iPad Pro as one, simply because it's smaller and easier to use. So the bottom line for reading, this thing, better than my old iPad Pro, mostly, and no worse, but still not very good in bright sunshine. So how about travel? I've taken a few trips with just my iPad Mini. What a treat to have it fit anywhere easily. Beats the heck out of my laptop. A USB head, which I need for my iPhone anyway, a cable and a card reader, and I'm set. Super simple setup, not fragile in the slightest. Importing and managing photos is easy peasy and very fast with this card reader I talked about in a previous video on accessories, and it all works great. But the downside here is that an iPad is not my MacBook Air. I cannot say I am a fan of iPad OS, and no app I use on an iPad is as good as anything that I use on my Air. There are very, very, very little that I would prefer to do on my iPad than I would prefer to do on my Air. For instance, I edit and manage all my photos on my Air in software significantly better than Apple's Photos. If while traveling I import them to the Mini and then edit them on the Mini, I still have to get them to the Air using AirDrop or some other method, and I probably have to edit them some more. I have big Excel sheets that live on my Air that I just can't have on my iPad, and some of them I need to access when traveling, and I just can't on my Mini. And those are just two examples. So while traveling, I end up doing a lot of things twice. once on the Mini or when I travel, and then again on my Air when I get home. A different iPad wouldn't alleviate this problem. By the way, it's just a compromise of using two different and not particularly compatible devices. So the bottom line for traveling, a great choice because of size and really no different than my old iPad Pro, but it still isn't my Air. Now to the biggie, my fieldwork. I only do this in the summer, so couldn't talk about it properly until now, and I've been at it for a couple of months now. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm on the bear management team where I live. In the summer, I spend a lot of time stewarding bears roadside. My iPad is always with me, bouncing around in my truck on gravel roads where I'm almost always at a cell service. Stored on it are manuals for the equipment I use, detailed maps of the work I need to do. I have a lot of other reference info stored on my pad, bear management protocols, databases of bear information, and radio communication protocols, just to name a few. An iPad enables me to do the paperwork I need to do on the fly, in the field, live, and in real time. That means I get good data and keep excellent records, and I use a pencil to annotate maps and write notes on things every single day I'm in the field. My MacBook would get wrecked doing this, but my iPad, rugged enough to take it. What's it been like with the new Mini, you ask? Barely okay. Not great, just barely okay. And it always comes back to the same two things: screen size, screen real estate, and brightness in outdoor settings. Let me show you without sacrificing any of my secret information. The biggest issue, in fact, is that everything is smaller and not by a little. Example number one, the spreadsheet I have to fill out. I use Numbers, which is a joke of a spreadsheet tool and a really counterintuitive one compared to Excel, but it's what I have. Want to know why I need a keyboard? Watch what happens when I try to edit the spreadsheet I need to use multiple times a day. Tap in a cell, and on the on-screen keyboard blots out all but one row of the spreadsheet. What a joke. Sure, I could rotate the screen to portrait. That gets me a smaller, less useful keyboard, plus the need to drag across the spreadsheet to gain access to columns I can't see. My 10.5-inch iPad Pro could handle the on-screen keyboard and a bunch of lines. The mini screen is just too small for this work without an external keyboard. What about annotating maps? Again, the super small display means a ton of pinching and zooming. Bigger display, less of that. But it's not just size, it's also scaling. You should think of the Mini as an oversized iPhone in many ways. Everything's cramped. This wasn't an issue with my old 10.5-inch iPad Pro. And I can't speak for you, but about 10% of the time I pinch and swipe, I get actions I didn't mean to do, tapping or scrolling or something. I end up undoing way more on the Mini than I ever did on the iPad Pro. And interacting with websites, where a bunch of the info I need is, just sucks. The thing I need to tap on are tiny, again, because of the Mini screen size. I'm regularly tapping on the wrong things because they're so small, or I have to pinch and swipe and zoom, again, accidentally doing the wrong things. This never used to happen on my iPad Pro. I thought it would be easier using a stylus, but sorry, no. And using a stylus while in the field just isn't great. I have to use my Mini outside a lot when I do field work. Did I mention it kind of sucks at work in the sunshine? Basically, I need shade to see the screen, and I often don't have that. This is a problem that would have been solved by a new model iPad Pro. Bottom line for my work, the iPad Mini is not a productivity device. Repeat, it is not a productivity device. It's not designed to be, not even for really light work. If you want to try, get really, really good at pinching and scrolling and swiping, but it took using a Mini for 6 months to realize that even the super light productivity work I do is just downright annoying on a Mini. Consuming content like looking at manuals or referencing maps is fine. Just don't try to do work beyond taking notes. And it's not a great device for using outdoors. It's just not. Interestingly, had I not purchased the Mini, my backup option was the 11-inch M2 iPad Pro. The Mini has 500 nits of brightness. The M2 Pro has 600 nits, which was the same as my old iPad Pro. Would that have been enough? I used to struggle with my old iPad Pro, but it was good enough. One thing's for sure, the M4 Pro has 1,000 nits of brightness. That would have been better. So folks, what does my experience and learning mean for you? For it is a wise man that learns from the mistakes of others and a fool from those of his own. Here were my foolish mistakes. I do a lot of work in sunlight. Display brightness should have been higher on my priority list. I didn't realize exactly how awful the Mini is at productivity tasks, even though I fully well knew in advance that it was not a productivity machine, and I've reminded people of that. A smaller screen is smaller everything. If you could do everything on your iPhone with just a bit bigger display, the Mini is perfect for you. I hate working on iPhones. I opted for portability and slightly lower cost and paid a significant price in usability. I do not think the iPad mini needs a fancy 120 hertz display, but it sure does need one with more brightness if you want to use it outside, which I think its portability suggests it should. 2020 hindsight time. Was it a good decision to opt for my mini instead of a refurbished M2 11-inch iPad Pro, which was my second choice? Maybe, but probably not. The phrase happy with my decision to downsize is not, however, in my lexicon. So my advice to you is be very, very careful in your decision to get an iPad mini. I considered myself very well informed, and I still ended up here. And in the meantime, it's going to keep living in my messy office along with me, I suspect. Thanks for watching.